Okay, I think we're back. Yes. Yeah, it's being recorded. So we had been talking about organizations that fund peacemaking efforts. And I think that's something to look into. Why don't we move on to a couple of other questions? Is that okay?
That's fine. Yes.
I didn't want to deprive Stephen of the other part of his question. So, what his first one was actually, he was looking, I think, for a little bit more about you personally, Woody. What impacted your career that made you realize that traditional litigated divorce was not always the best way for your clients? Care to share?
Oh, that's more than our 15 minutes. And it goes back a long way. But to try and give it some direction, and so we can talk about other things. I hate talking about myself. I was a litigator for 25 years. I'm a card-carrying family lawyer. I belong to all the organizations. The ABA Family Law Section in my state bar. I'm a certified specialist. I live that life, and many of my colleagues are card-carrying family lawyers. And I've been inspired by various judges and lawyers who have come to the same conclusion, that when people finish the litigation process, they're rarely better off, always poorer, and the family has much less chance of being able to reconstitute and heal. And I saw it again and again and again and again. And so when I re-entered practice after being the head of the Consumer Protection Department of the Federal Trade Commission in Los Angeles, and I re-entered practice, I re-entered to be a peacemaker, to be a mediator, and I found that area was most taken off in the family area. And I also believe that families are the real foundation of our society. That when we can impact two parents who are in conflict, it isn't just those parents and those children, but those children's children, and the children that play with those children, and the people who are part of the school of those parents. And it's a major impact that we can make, both in reducing the pain and reducing the damage. The AFCC has for a long time seen divorce as a public health hazard, and I do as well. But it also gives people a chance to learn a different approach, that when they're not with the professionals, that they can speak better with each other, they can learn to find out what their real needs are as opposed to what they think they are, and have better lives. So I guess I saw a number of divorce tragedies, including murders and deaths, and those types of catastrophes that came through the litigation process. Yes, in my office, I had on too many occasions, either my clients or the other party commit these acts or be victims to them. I think every family lawyer experiences it. And we have to be very, very careful. People are on the edge when they are in this family crisis.
Yeah.
And being on the edge, it isn't just murder and heart attacks and one-car accidents. It's a lack of social functioning. And so I don't believe that collaborative law or mediation is a pure antidote and cure for the breakup of a family. It's difficult. It just often ameliorates these tragedies or the chance of them happening and gives people a better start.
As you were sharing a little bit about yourself, I was struck by how much of your transition was a shift from simply doing a job to seeking to be of benefit, to seeking to rather than simply do no harm, avoid harm as much as possible, undo it, which I dare say is a big chunk of the paradigm shift that we all talk about so much.
And people do it. I believe that traditional family professionals do it.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
Yeah.
I think that litigators try to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that adversarial evaluators, child custody evaluators, and special masters try to do it.
Yep.
Judges try to do it. I don't think we're talking about good faith. I think there's some wonderful people.
Yeah.
Whether they are card-carrying collaborative practitioners or mediators or not. We're all in it to help families. There's just different ways of doing it. And I have found that the public court system and the adversarial paradigm often does more harm than good.
Right. The way
but it is certainly better.
Yeah.
It's certainly better than violent help.
Right.
It is it is an institution that requires more funding and more help. I mean, our courts in Los Angeles and the rest of California are in critical shape, and I believe that people have a right to the courts. If we can avoid it, so much the better. And if we have private systems that will positively and beneficially divert these matters, I believe it's a public savings as well. But I do think people have the right to for the protection and the help of the courts, and I think that we as collaborative professionals support them.
I agree. I mean, I rarely will hesitate when I hear someone openly criticizing litigation and litigators. I too was a litigator for a long time, and readily admit that I enjoyed winning. It's a lot of fun, but it's my win, not always the client's win. And my response, what I try to express to colleagues who are critical and express when I'm describing processes to the clients, is there's nothing inherent in the litigation system that requires that it be harmful, that it even be acrimonious. It's not required in there. So it can be done, as you point out, as many of our litigating colleagues work very hard to do. It can be done in a respectful, even peaceful manner. And of course, we're talking about the differences not more the difference of the participants. Some participants, whether the clients or the professionals, do better at maintaining peace in a litigated system, and others do better with the added support of the collaborative process or the well-trained mediator. And I had something else, but who cares? It'll come back to me. I know where I wanted to go. It's a goal for me, and I think I've heard you talk about it as well. Since I've been involved with collaborative practice, maybe it's just the convert's attitude. I still bristle when I hear mediation and collaborative practice referred to as alternative dispute resolution. I shudder. I go like, no, they are dispute resolution. Litigation may result in settlement, but it doesn't really resolve a dispute. Thoughts? In short, my goal, my desire, I'd love to see eventually ADR being used to refer to having to go to court because nothing else worked.
Well, that's happening in Australia and has for many years. Mm-hmm. They have reframed and took apart our concepts, and starting in the state of Victoria around Melbourne, and then with the Australian Family Act, ADR is litigation, evaluation, and arbitration. PDR, primary dispute resolution, is conciliation, mediation, collaborative law, and negotiation. And that's the way it's been framed, and our Australian colleagues have gone way ahead of us, and for a long time now, in making that possible. And just like the word custody is only when people are in jail, or you visit your old Aunt Mabel. No offense to our Mabels, but parents don't visit their children; they care for them. And so we've changed our language in many states, and now we're changing our processes. I mean, in fact, I would see a good collaborative professional as a designer of the process. And so it doesn't necessarily be an alternative. It may be the most appropriate design. Many of my colleagues here in California and I call it consensual dispute resolution. We have different names for it. But the big change is it may not be the alternative. The alternative is a trial. In California and in many states, not more than 5% of ultimate decisions are made through the trial court. Right. That means that is the alternative. 95% of them are reached in settlement. Some of them with pre-settlement skirmishes and litigation, and many having never even filed in a court. So it isn't just our language, though. I think you're right. It's the way we approach this. And when people like you and me, we've made a decision never to go back to court. At least I have. I will never take a court case under no circumstances. And so my practice is 100% peacemaking. And therefore, even if I'm working in a negotiation with a non-collaboratively trained person who will not sign a participation agreement and often uses threats and other old paradigm tactics and strategies, I will never do it. I won't threaten them. Right. I will treat that person in the new paradigm. And some would say, well, aren't you setting your client up for being hurt? Well, or bludgeoned. And I don't believe that's true. I think we can use a cape and not a sword. But also, we as collaborative professionals, if we're full-time doing that, may work with our colleagues who are litigators, as I do. It actually helped build my practice. Now that my colleagues in my community know I never go to court, and I refer out all my litigation, and I bring in litigators as my backups and my consultants, often in the collaborative process as a last stage, there are more referrals that come from litigators.
So on occasion you actually, what is the process you're describing there where you'd have a litigator as backup? Talk a little bit more about how that looks.
Okay, let's look first without the participation agreement, and then we'll talk about with. Okay. In a regular negotiation of a family law matter, I will always be a non-court lawyer. I never go to court. So I will invite the other side to engage in a productive, hopefully productive discussion and negotiation to resolve everything. However, sometimes the other side will use the court system or threats to try and leverage an advantage. In those situations, I will both arrange and announce that I have arranged for a barrister backup. I'm the solicitor. Mm-hmm. That I will have a barrister backup. That if that happens, they won't see me in court, but they will see this very well-known and highly skilled litigator who will back up my situation. And often the other party will make a good choice. They'd rather work with me than work with my colleague, who is the litigator.
Time flies.
Yes, it sounds like we're finished with our 15 minutes.
That's another 15 minutes. Let's continue a little bit.
But let me just then talk about how it's brought in when there is a participation agreement, which is my favorite process, where the parties in counsel have signed a disqualification clause. Then, if in fact we're at late stage and parties are either threatening to leave or want other consultation, I will work with collaborative colleagues to either encourage each party to seek a litigation consultation, and maybe for those litigators to come to a final collaborative meeting so that parties really can have a joint dose of reality, or we will work in bringing in a neutral litigation consultant, a neutral litigation evaluator who will come and discuss that with the parties and collaborative counsel as a catalyst for one last try. Mm-hmm. And so I have collaborative colleagues who say, well, aren't you tainting the process? Aren't you polluting the collaborative process by injecting these litigation elements? And I say, this is reality. I would rather have that impure collaborative process where they get their last clear chance to stay in, because there's such a cost to termination, as you talked about in your post on the listserv, that one of the things that I did talk about in the master class is the huge cost of a termination. But parties are entitled to an informed choice. But I'd like it to be a really informed choice so that they can see what it's like outside that door. So whether I'm mediating or I'm doing collaborative work, I ask my clients to commit to the following. If you're thinking of leaving this process and walking out the door, will you commit to two things? One, you'll come and talk to me about it and tell me your reasons before you walk. And number two, would you be willing to explain to me what is better out there than in here? And once you've done that, if you feel that it is better out there, your BATNA is better outside than inside, then you will have my blessing, and I hope that it works out well for you. And I found that most people will meet that commitment.
Just for those who aren't always also familiar with the term BATNA, is best alternative to a negotiated agreement? Is that it?
Yes, it comes from getting to yes. And the other two terms are the WATNA, the worst alternative to the negotiated agreement, and I think people should know that too, how bad it can be going outside. Mm-hmm. And then their MLATNA, ML, their most likely alternative to a negotiated agreement, so that they can look and see what their bargaining range is. Okay?
Okay. And so you bring in the litigating attorneys to offer that perspective, either a single neutral or the individually hired, just to share that view of the alternatives to a negotiated agreement, as opposed to doing it yourself.
Their energy.
Pardon?
Yes, with their energy and with their expertise and experience to explain what that litigation process is like. Because, many of our clients become the uninitiated because they've been in the collaborative, they haven't seen the other side. And quite often, in fact, more often than not, these litigators don't need another litigation case. They are fully prepared to, and they do, recommend that the parties work it out here in collaborative thing, and it gives a little more life to the collaborative negotiation.
Okay. I'm going to break the recording again and come right back. All right, so we're back recording, and Woody, we realized as soon as I hit the stop record that we had just about gone an hour already, and I know you've got other things you need to take care of. There's still so many questions. You're willing to join me again and talk some more?
This is quite stimulating and enjoyable for me, Carl Michael.
Okay, so we have agreed on a date, and we'll detail that, and maybe we'll work on some of the other ideas that you and I talked about as well. Thanks again, and I will see you at the next installment. And to the questions that I didn't get to from people who submitted them, I apologize, and I will do my best to pose them to you next time, Woody. How's that?
I would love that.
Okay.
My guess is they'll still be relevant.
I think so. Having previewed them myself. All right. Be well. See you next time, my friend. Bye.
You too, Carl Michael. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. The recording is... Nope.